Welcome to the Thrive podcast with the Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church.
How does your faith kind of play into it, or does it play into it?
What can be done about it? When I say the church, I'm talking about evangelical white Christians and the black folk who attend their churches.
Hello, welcome to the Thrive podcast with the Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church. I'm Fred Jeff Smith, pastor of Shiloh, and I'm very happy that you have chosen to either view this on YouTube or listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, or Amazon. As always, we invite your input. You can reach me at fredjeffsmith@gmail.com, fredjeffsmith@gmail.com, and you can let me know how we're doing with our Thrive podcast. I am very happy today to welcome as my guest Lyn Legier, who is running for District Court Judge here in East Baton Rouge Parish, the 19th Judicial District. Did I get that right? Yes, ma'am. And we are delighted to have you come and share with us today. Welcome to the Thrive podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell me, you're a native of Monroe.
I am.
How did you get down here to Baton Rouge?
So I'm glad you asked. I decided to go to law school. I graduated from Grambling State University in accounting, and then once I finished that, then I came here to Southern. I moved to Baton Rouge October '94, and then I started Southern's Law School in August of '95.
Okay. And once you graduated from law school, you just decided to stay here?
Correct.
Okay. And before you came to law school, you were in the military. You're in the United States military. You were in the Air Force.
I was.
Tell me about that experience.
So I was in high school, and the military recruiters came to our school. I went to Neville High School. And so they were like, hey, if you all come take a test, just take a test, and there's no fail, no pass. It doesn't matter. Just take the test, see how you do. And then once you take the test, you could leave. And I was like, hey, I'll do that. And so took the test, went home. A few weeks later, maybe about a month later, I had recruiters just started calling me. And when the recruiters were calling, I was like, I don't know what's going on. But finally, my mom and I did meet with them. They told me about the education process that you had. And I said, okay. The opportunities. And so I knew that my mom, who was a single parent, couldn't really afford to pay for college for us. And so I'm the oldest of 3 children. I had 2 younger brothers. And so I started actually looking into it. And so I looked into the Air Force, which I enjoyed. I was in the Air Force for about 6.5 years. And I actually did what I said I was going to do. While I was in the Air Force, I went to school. That's how, when I got out, because I was in the Air Force 6.5 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And so when I got out, that's how I went to Grambling, and I was only there for 2 years. And I think, in discussing things, that it's important to state that, we have to be mindful of the things that we're doing no matter what. Because while I was in the Air Force, they just happened to give us a whole bunch of credit cards. And when they gave us the credit cards, I was like, charge. And, I didn't have any idea about being financially responsible. I was 18, just my first time ever having that type of access, right? So what I did was didn't pay the credit cards, didn't think anything about it. I went to school, did what I wanted to do. I said I was going to be a CPA. Got a really great job offer at State Farm. I was about to work there. And those people said, baby, I had good grades. I had a great job.
Yes, ma'am.
And so those people said, baby, you can't work here. And I was like, what's wrong? What happened? You have bad credit. And,
So bad credit kept you from getting a job.
Bad credit kept me from getting a job,
The job
that I wanted. The job.
Did you hear that? Bad credit can keep you from being employed.
And so, at this point, I have 1 credit card.
Yes, ma'am.
And from that point on. And but I would just tell anybody, we have to be mindful of the things that we do and our finances, manage them well, even from the 18, right? And so while in school, I had a pastor. I didn't even know it at the time, but it was Professor Cunningham. He was like, Lyn, I think that you should go to law school. No, Came back the second time. I think you should go to law school. No, I'm going to be a CPA. And then the third time he said the same thing. But little did I know that was God nudging me the entire time. And, you know, we always, and we hear the old cliche that we have a plan, God laughs at that plan, but his purpose is always going to be served.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that's how I got to law school, because once I didn't get that job, which wasn't his plan or his purpose for me, and so once I didn't get that job, then I was like, okay. And so I talked to Professor Cunningham a little bit more, and then that's how I got to law school.
So you finished in accounting.
Yes.
Went to law school.
Yes.
How did your accounting background influence your choices in law?
So I went to law school with the accounting degree to become a tax attorney. And so so while you're in law school, you clerk. So my second and third year of law school, 2L, 3L, I clerked for the Department of Revenue and Taxation. That's what it was called at that time.
Okay.
And so I clerked from them, and it was kind of boring.
Okay.
And so, but you know, the attorneys never went to court, and you know, being in a courtroom, that's exciting. It's always moving. You have to think fast and move fast, right? And so I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do that. So when I passed the bar in '99, I had the opportunity to go work with Ron Johnson. At that time, he was still a practicing attorney.
Okay.
And so I worked in the office with Ron. And let's say if I passed the bar on Friday, I'd probably been with Ron maybe about a month prior to this. I would go to court with him, follow him around, you know, do whole files. That following Monday, after I passed the bar, Ron handed me some files and said, go to court. And I was like, ah! But, you know, it wound up being wonderful because, you know, you get to learn and have the opportunity of a great mentor. And so he helped me from falling into a couple of potholes. And I also got the opportunity to see, you know, the criminal side of things, the civil side of things, where people actually have to go to court. And so from that point on, I did some private practice. I still do. But primarily, I did the public defender's office from 2001 till today, to 2023. And it gives you the opportunity to be in court every day. You're learning things, learning how, you know, things work inside the courtroom. And, you know, that's how I got there.
You're here to talk about your candidacy for a judgeship, but you mentioned the public defender's office. Can I ask you about the public defender's office?
Whatever you like.
There has been some concern about the public defender's office in the last couple of years. And now there seems to be a transition in what's going on. Can you share with us your insights as to the status of the public defender? I'm not asking you to tell anything about anybody, but what's the status of the public defender's office, in your opinion, at this point?
Well, now I believe that the office is really in a good place. Before, we had good managers that had their hands tied. And specifically, I'll say that I believe that Lisa Parker's hands were tied on some matters, they're important matters. Now that she's gone, her contract had ended and they didn't renew it. Now we have Tommy Gibson there as the
good friend of mine.
Really nice man, really good man. And a very, very hard worker. And so I appreciate, although the board did not do it, as soon as Tommy came in, and I told him myself that I really appreciated it, that as soon as he got in, he went around and he talked to all the employees, be employee, secretary, attorney, investigator, contract worker. He spoke with everyone to put everybody's mind at ease, right? Because we just had an uproar, and now, or an oust, and now, you know, everything is just up in the air, everybody's in limbo, and that's not, some uncertainty is good, but a lot of uncertainty is bad, you know, especially bad for business. And so what he did was he came in, he spoke to everyone, kind of put everybody at ease about their job, about their placement, Then he went over and spoke with the judges, and he's just and he also talked with the DA, and so he's just helping all the relationships to mesh well together again, and we're just moving forward, and we have more people that are coming back because he is aggressively going out to get more people back.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that they're in a good place, and that it's going to be easy for everyone to move forward.
Do you enjoy litigation?
I love it.
You mentioned that at first you were dealing with taxation and it was a little boring.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy going to court?
I love going
You
to
enjoy
court.
the argument?
I love the argument.
My sister's a lawyer, so
Yes.
so we talk from time to time. I've told you before, she doesn't think I know anything, but I hope that I know a little something. Good lawyers, I understand, can argue both sides
Yes.
of an issue with equal dexterity.
Correct.
Do you think that that's the case?
I do.
Okay. What made you decide, because you're running for judge, what made you decide that instead of being the one who makes the argument, you wanted to be the one who heard the argument and helped to guide the decision? I know juries make decisions, but you wanted to be the one to help guide the process in decisions that are being made.
So you can have a jury or you could have a judge trial.
Right.
Many times the judges the judges make decisions on hearings, right, which help the decisions for the jurors. And I believe that, as a judge, you have to be effective and you have to be understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And with that being said, I know for a fact, and I tell people all the time, I'm probably one of the most objective people that you'll ever meet, because I do understand both sides and that there are feelings on both sides, but you need a judge who can get past that and not have a shock of what's actually happening, of a charge.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just tell you this, and I'll try to make it quick.
Take your time.
When I first started working with Ron, we had a guy who came in with an armed robbery. Now, I had never been in this arena before, and so, like I said, I just started working.
Mm-hmm.
When he came in and said that he had an armed robbery, I was like, oh my God, right? And you're out.
Right. Right.
But after about a year or so of doing this, you become not necessarily desensitized, but you have an understanding that everybody plays a role. And then as a judge, you too play a very important role, because at the end of the day, I'm going to be the one doing the sentencing.
Mm-hmm.
But I won't be shocked by these different offenses, because it's a criminal bench, or it's going to be some of it will be civil, and you just have to know things happen. And as a judge, when you sit there with that type of temperament and understanding, then it helps you to be more effective and efficient to get things moving. And I think that that's what we need. I think that especially in this day and time, we have a lot of fear, and fear runs things.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and with that being said, especially with the crime and the shooting and all of that going on, people want to feel comfortable in knowing that the courts see it, we hear it, and that we are taking care of it, the way that's necessary.
What do you think about the bail system as it is currently being used? There are a lot of people who are in parish prison. And by the way, it's really not a prison. Prison means that you've been convicted, but that's what we all call it. We call it parish prison. They're in jail. They're being detained. And it could be literally years before they have the opportunity to come before a judge in a trial setting, simply because they can't afford to make bail. And just the process of not being able to make bail, just the process of being charged and being detained, ruins their lives. They can't work a job. They can't be with their families. What do you see as being a remedy to what I perceive to be a problem with the bail system as it currently exists? Or am I wrong? I mean, please if I'm wrong, set me straight.
Well,
it's okay. Trust me, I'm told that quite a lot.
so, well, I won't necessarily say that you're wrong. What I will say is that, again, we have to look at the big picture of things.
Mm-hmm.
And the big picture of things, in looking at it that way, is everyone has a right to a bond, except for first-degree murders. Now, first-degree murder people, they don't have a bond. That's without bond. So you're entitled to a bond. And then there's a way that there are conditions and elements and things for you to look at in reference to how much this bond is and what the purpose of a bond. And then I argue all the time for defendants that the purpose of a bond is to make sure that a person comes back to court, comes to his court dates as required by law once he's been formally charged, right? Be it through bill of information or indictment, you can still get a bond. However, the problem is with so many people still being in jail is that they don't have the money to make the bond.
Yes.
For the most part, bonds are reasonable. Now, a lot of times families can pool together and try to make the bond, but the bond goes with the charge. And what I'll say is like Judge T.H.R.I.V.E, when she came in and started sitting on a district court bench from city court, Judge T.H.R.I.V.E realized that for every single charge, you need to make up, there's a bond amount for every single charge that you're charged with. So before, if you had 4 offenses, then you would just get, a $100,000 bond. When in actuality, it should have been like 25, 25, 25, right? And so as the process moves along, because you're correct, a lot of times people think just because you're arrested that you're guilty.
Right.
That's not true. But it is one of those things, It is one of those things of you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. I've seen that on the news now. They have that little caption, innocent until proven guilty. However, it's the nature of the beast that you're guilty until proven innocent, even in looking at your bond settings. So you do have the opportunity sometimes to hire attorneys so they can go in and get your bond reduced. But that's still a big argument on both sides. Sometimes people are upset because the bonds are too small. Then you have a lot of people who are upset because the bonds are too high.
There have been instances that I'm aware of where a bond was set and perhaps reset. I don't remember the details. But the person was out on bond and committed another crime, perhaps even a more heinous crime than the first one. And the community turns on the judge who set the bond, saying that the bond was set too low. There's no reason for this person to be out on the street. But is that not a part of the legal process, that there is a bond that exists? And if the person is able to make the bond, don't they have the right to be back out on? Of course, they don't have a right to commit crime, but they have the right to be back out on the street. And there should be no recrimination against the judge because a person availed themselves to the process that was in place. Am I correct in that assessment?
Okay, so this is what I'll say to that. You are correct that a person is entitled to a bond, just as we've been discussing. The only problem is you can get a bond set, but you can still have a hold. And
what is a hold? Help me understand.
The hold means that you have a bond set, but you can't get out.
How does that work?
So let's say, for instance, like you said, you already are out on bond. More than likely, you're out on bond for a felony. Felonies carry, at a minimum, more than 6 months to a year in jail, right? So no telling what you're in jail for, right? Let's just say you're in jail for unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. That charge alone carries 0 to 10 years, right? Sometimes 0 to 5, 0 to 10, right?
So when my son took my car without permission, I could have put him in jail for 10 years.
You could have put him in jail.
I wish I had known that. I'm just teasing. But go ahead.
So, and that's a lot of times how it happens. And so, so you're out on bond. Well, being out on bond, you have bond conditions. And that's where the sticky part comes in. So I let you out, and then I say, as a condition of your bond, most of the time it's like stay away from the victim if there's a victim. You have to go take some classes, and stay drug free. But the
Okay.
main thing is, it says stay arrest-free. Arrest and conviction-free.
Okay.
That's a part of your bond. When I do a bond, that's an order that you are now under the court with. So when you went to go get arrested again, then guess what? You just violated that order.
Okay.
That's why either A, once I look at the APC, which is the affidavit of probable cause, why the police officers arrested you. Once I look at that, and then I see maybe it's not so bad. But if it's a heinous crime, when I came up, like I said with Ron in 99, 2000, if you got rearrested while you were out on bond, especially for a felony, another felony, you didn't get out. And so until your charge or both charges were resolved. Now, there are times, of course, everything in law, just as any other profession, is a case-by-case basis. There are some instances, like I say, I could look at the APC, and it might not really be that bad. Or you may have a victim who came in and said, I don't want to go forward with this. But there are so many different things and so many reasons why you either A, you're going to stay in jail with that hold on you, or B, you might have another opportunity.
So when that happens to a person, and I understand what you just said about committing a crime while out on bond, but when that happens, when let's assume, for the sake of my question,
Okay.
that a person has been accused of robbery, simple theft, and they have a $100,000 bond. Might be too excessive. Somebody might be watching and saying it would never be that high. I don't know. I'm just using numbers.
Right.
As I understand it, you're required to pay 10% of that.
12%.
12%. You're responsible for the whole amount, but you only have to pay 12%
12%.
of it. So 12% of $100,000 is $12,000.
Correct.
If a person is poor and does not have access to $12,000, then the person has to stay in jail until his trial comes
Correct.
up. And the way the dockets run these days, that trial could be a year, 18 months, perhaps even 2 years down the line before it ever comes to trial. In the meantime, he's in jail.
Right.
He's away from his family. He can't work. He loses any kind of fellowship with the community. And if he's found not guilty and he's let back out into the world 2 years later, he's stepping out into a world where his life has been totally ruined. Now, I know I'm the one setting the hypothetical, so I'm making it as grievous as it could possibly be. But these kinds of things do happen, where people are kept in jail for inordinate periods of time, even though they have not yet been found guilty of any crime. And when they're let loose, the court essentially says, sorry. Law enforcement essentially says, sorry, and you know, you really did look like the person who we thought did that, but we're sorry. But that person's life is ruined as a result of that. I'm just wondering, is there something that can be done to mitigate that kind of potential tragedy in the bond system?
Yes, it's called an attorney. And that's when it's good for you to have the right attorney on your side, someone who's going to listen to you, understand your issues, do some investigation, because that's where the devil is in the details. The investigation. The investigation is going to prove if the person, and like when I'm practicing, I want to help you prove your case, because if I help you prove your case, I already know your weaknesses, and I already know whether my client was there or not. And so the more I know and to be able to help my client, the better. And if I have a client who I truly believe is innocent, then hell or high water, we're going to get it done. And so along the way, now all this time while, let's say we'll go with your scenario of the 2 years. First of all, we're going to go with, if someone was robbed, that's a crime of violence. So now if you just steal something, that's different. But to rob someone, be it with a with your hand, or you're just grabbing them, taking their items from them, taking their phone, taking their money. That's a robbery. Anytime you snatch something from someone in their control. But now if you do it with a weapon, then it's an armed robbery, 10 to 99 or 15 to 99, right? So that's very, very serious. Now, let's just say...
That's years. When you said 10 to 99,
10...
That's 10 years to 99
to 99
years, or 15
years.
to 99
Or
years.
15 to 99
Okay,
years.
I just wanted to be clear on that.
So that's where we are with that. Now, in the meantime, in between times, you go to jail, you get billed probably in a couple of months. Your family, your attorney are trying to work on your bond. You have to look at so many things. You have to consider their rap sheet, if they've ever been arrested before. What were they doing? Are they working while all of this stuff is going on, right? And so, because I always tell people there are a lot of moving parts that we have to consider. Now, we'll still stay with this robbery, and we'll just keep it simple. And so with a simple robbery, it was at 0 to 7. Every time they come to court, that's an opportunity to be heard, especially if you're innocent, right? At arraignment, the person is going to be talking to you. The client is going to be talking to their attorney. The attorney is going to be talking to the judge. The attorney is going to be talking to the DA. And it just works itself out that I'm not going to say that everyone who stays in jail years and years are guilty, but most of the time those cases are murder cases. It's not normally people don't stay in jail long periods of time, but I will tell you this: a day in jail is too long, especially for someone who's innocent. And so I do understand that, but most of the time you still have to look at how things are working, and the biggest part right here is, and especially with this scenario, is the attorney. Making sure that you have someone who's on your side, who's actually fighting for you and trying to get you out.
The 19th Judicial District, at this point, is majority black judges. As someone who's had experience with the 19th JDC for a long period of time, have you seen an appreciable difference in how things are handled now that the judges are majority black as opposed to what it was previously? Has there been improvement? I guess that's a good way of asking that question.
I do believe that there has been improvement. I will say, too, that East Baton Rouge Parish is majority black. Yes. And so that's very representative. Just as with the Chief of Public Defender, they would prefer that person be black. We still have ways to go with all the positions, but I have seen things get better. People aren't so afraid to go to court anymore. We did have some judges of different races. I'll put it like that. Yes. Of different races who thought that people just deserve to be in jail. And if we are being truly transparent and frank, 85% of the people who go to court are black. Yes. And 80% of them are black males. So just like you say, they're being taken away from their homes. And who better to understand that than someone who looks like you, who's sitting on the bench. And now you're not afraid, and I tell people all the time that we have to understand the court system and what's going on, and so that you can speak freely and be able to help your attorney to help you. But if there's so much distrust, then there's a barrier there. Now that we have judges who look like us, I think that you can kind of relax a little bit, but you still have to maintain that business and respect for the court.
In national news these days, a lot of talk is about conservative judges versus liberal judges. Who appointed the judge? Which president, administration did the judge come into power under? With the things that are happening with Mr. Trump these days, that's one of the questions that comes up a lot. Conservative judges versus liberal judges. On the district judge level, is that a real consideration, conservative versus liberal judges?
It is. We have some very conservative districts, which I'm saying that to say that's predominantly white.
Okay.
That like I said earlier, that operate out of fear. So that is, and I'm not saying all of our white judges do this. You know, people are fair.
I understand.
But again, it's still a conservative district, just the same as on the city council, conservative districts. And they believe that things should be done one way. If you get in trouble, you go to jail and you stay in jail. Now, is that fair? No, because we just talked about and discussed that I might be innocent. So should that be the case for everyone? Again, case by case, no, it should not. But that's why I say, yes, we do have some conservative judges and some liberal judges. We have a couple of in the middle, black judges, moderates.
Okay.
And on the bench right now too. But I think it's starting to even out.
Would you care to characterize yourself, assuming that you win this election? Would you be conservative, liberal, moderate, progressive? Nobody likes the word liberal anymore. Progressive, moderate. If you were to characterize yourself.
If I were to keep so if we say, hey, let's go with the first thought that comes to your mind.
Okay.
The first thought that comes to my mind is more moderate.
Okay.
That's the first thought. Just simply because I've been doing this for so long. And, you know, it would be different if I didn't know anything, right? Never did criminal trials, never had, one-on-one communications like that. However, because of my experience and the knowledge and understanding, I can say I think that moderate is good, you know, because, again, and I keep saying this, it's a case-by-case basis. But at the same time, you know, you do have to pay attention because what our job is, just like any other position that has to deal with the public, we're here to protect the public. We're here, and you're elected to do what your constituents want you to do. And believe it or not, because I've been out campaigning, what I've been hearing from my constituents is that there's some fear. There's a lot of fear. We do want people to come back into the community, do re-entry programs, and have a second chance. And so with that being said, that makes you a moderate because I have to protect the public from violent offenders. But at the same time, you have to understand that people really are, because that's the purpose of jail or prison, to rehabilitate. So people really are going to jail and being rehabilitated, and you have to give them opportunity too.
As a judge, are you assigned certain kinds of cases? For the seat that you're running, would you be primarily criminal? Would you be civil, or is it that you get to see both?
Both.
You get to see both.
Yes.
When it comes to civil matters, this is primarily having to do with contracts.
Yes.
Back to that boring stuff that you don't, that you're not crazy about. Tell me how a person can best protect themselves against civil litigation as they try to conduct business in this climate. Louisiana is known, Baton Rouge is known as a very litigious community. People will sue you at the drop of a hat. So I guess the question I'm trying to get to is there a way that you can protect yourself against that kind of litigious environment in the crafting of the contracts that you enter into?
So the first thing that I suggest is research, right? And the reason why I say it that way is because you're going to research the industry that you're trying to get into, and most of this is commercial. The industry that you're trying to get into, and who's the best lawyers in that industry. for the type of job or profession that you have. And then the next thing is looking at the financial side of it, making sure that you have a good business manager who's going to tell you how to set up your practice or set up your business that's going to benefit you and protect you. A lot of times we have the, I'm not saying a small mom and pop organization can't afford it, but you can't afford not to do it. And so if you go into something with the proper understanding and advisement, then you can better set yourself up to ward off all of the litigants that might come against you.
I was having a conversation a couple of weeks ago with retired Judge Curtis Calloway, and I was telling him that I had just finished interviewing someone else who's a candidate for judge in a different district, and that I was going to be interviewing you at some point in the future, and perhaps others as we go through this election process. And he made mention of the fact that for him, the biggest concern about candidates for judge is experience. That there are many people, he did not call a name, but there are many people who are running for judge who don't necessarily have the experience, the trial experience of carrying a trial from beginning to end. That experience is lacking. Would you agree with that assessment? Disagree? What's your opinion about that?
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with that, and because it's one of those things of you could see the job being done, you could be in the area of the job being done, but until you actually do the job, can you do it? And so, as an attorney, I'm in court every day, and having hearings, talking to defendants, talking to the DA, talking with the judge. And so you get an understanding from every one of those positions what is really going on, right? And how you're going to work this out, almost like a mediator. And so once you get an understanding of that, then you can move forward. But if you've never done that, then as a judge, how can you actually help the situation? How do you move things forward if you don't know or don't understand what it takes to even make it move or to make it go? And like I said earlier, there's always a lot of moving parts here. And if you don't understand, if you only understand one part of it, come to court or be in the courtroom, then what about talking to defendants? How about as a judge? I've seen judges that I admire. They say, hey, this is the offer. These are the facts. We've had hearings on them. I'm going to tell you this is what I'm going to do. If you don't have that knowledge, you can't do that. You just have to wait and see and then go do some research. But because I've been in the courtroom for over 20 years, and I've had the opportunity to have hearings, to have trials, to be in sentencings, to hear victim impact statements, all of that matters, and all of that comes together to make you a whole, well-rounded judge. And so that's why I truly agree. And then the other part is you understand people's time, and you also understand the pressure that they're under.
We mentioned earlier that you spent 6 years in the Air Force, 6+ years in the Air Force. How does your Air Force experience come into play in your current life as an attorney, and will it come into play as you ascend to the bench?
So I don't see it.
Okay.
But they do have people out there and say, okay, Lyn, this is not the military. But I just think that, in the military, you learn discipline early. The first week, you learn discipline, timeliness, and people's, perspective on things that you have to hear. And I believe that that's the main thing that the Air Force has taught me, that you have to be disciplined. You have to take people's time not for granted, but make it a priority for you, so that you can move things forward. And that's why I believe that in coming on the bench, knowing everything already, then we won't have these slow dockets. You won't have people sitting in jail for 2 and 3 years. That's one of the things that I like right now about Judge Gail Ray. Judge Ray is saying, hey, these are the old matters that we had on the docket. Let's move them. Either the person's innocent or they're guilty. Let them out. And so, but of course, through due process, everybody has a right to due process, a constitutional right. And so I think that with me being in the Air Force, it helped to make me more well-rounded in reference to learning at an early age that it takes a team. And although I might be the head of the team as a judge, I still need the DA's office to do their job. I need to help me to do my job. I also need the defense, be it the public defender's office or private counsel. I need them, those attorneys too, to help me to do my job. I need the deputies in the courtroom to help me to do my job. And we work together as a team.
You came down from Monroe and settled in Baton Rouge. Do you ever go back to Monroe? Do you have family in Monroe? Help me to understand the biggest difference between North Louisiana and South Central Louisiana.
I think that for me, the biggest difference is, of course, the culture. But that culture is, in North Louisiana, it's the difference, food and music. I believe that's the biggest difference, the art.
And you said that without giving a preference. Do you have a preference?
Well, I'm allergic to seafood.
Okay.
And everything here is a lot of seafood.
Yes.
But I could always find something to eat wherever I go. Now, I will tell you, it's crazy. I love the music here. And then the west part of Louisiana, I would have never thought that I loved Zydeco. Love Zydeco.
Okay.
And so, but I heard none of that in Monroe. And then, I love gumbo, chicken and sausage, though. So whenever my friends are cooking it, I just tell them, okay, so I know how to cook this. I know what you need to do. So just take mine out first before you put the seafood in.
Gotcha.
It's so delicious.
Gotcha. You are a member of Mount Zion First Baptist Church.
I am.
So I would imagine that faith plays a large role in your life. Can you expound on how your faith has led you up to this point in your life and led you in the decision-making process to pursue a judgeship?
So in 2016, I started doing my own Bible study with a friend. And then, the more you study, which I don't have to tell you, but I will still say this because I learned it on my own. I think that people need to hear this, just from somebody who's not a pastor. I just think that you have to start reading the Bible for yourself, because I've heard of you, I've seen you, we've spoken before, but I don't know you. But now if you give me a book to read about you, or I get to talk to people who know things about you, now we can develop a relationship. And that's the same thing with God. So once I started developing this relationship with God, I was able to start depending not so much on my own self, but depending on what He says. And so at first, it came to me probably in 2019 that I was thinking about running for judge. And I don't think at that time that was my time. And so I prayed about it. And here we are again in March of 2023. And I prayed about it. And at this time, God said yes. And so, even though I know that we live in the New Testament, we still could look back at the Old Testament. And we know David, who was a man of God's, after God's heart. I recall that David, now of course, I don't know scripture, you do, but I do like it, the fact that no matter what David was doing, he was asking God, do you want me to do this? Are you going to be with me? And will I be successful? And so, in every stage, I've been talking to God, and and trying to hear what the Holy Spirit is telling me. And at this time, he's saying move forward.
Your two presumed opponents are also black women.
Yes.
So it seems that however this turns out, there will be a black female assuming this seat on the bench, replacing a black female who has been on the bench. Do you think that that continuity is important?
I do.
Not just that they be black, but that they be black women.
I think that I will say that the main thing is that you have someone who's experienced. You know, to me, that's the most important thing. When Judge White got on the bench, she had already been a judge. She was in city court dealing with matters, understanding matters, and had been practicing first. And so then so it wasn't too big of a leap for her to be, when she got on the district court bench. I call it the big boy seat, right? And so I just think that no matter who it is, be it a man or a woman, you know, I appreciate definitely the continuity of being black. But to me, the most important thing is being black and experienced. So that if your position and role is to help your people, who better to help my people than someone who looks like me, right? And I believe that that's the most important part about it.
One or two different questions, and then we're going to be done. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, yeah.
Louisiana has 4 law schools.
Okay.
All 4 of them.
Southern is the best.
No argument. My mother worked there for many, many years. But there are 4 law schools, 2 in New Orleans, 2 in Baton Rouge. None in Alexandria or Monroe or Shreveport. Do you think that there is a shortage of law schools in this state? Do you think that this state could benefit from having law schools in the central and northern part of the state? Because it seems like everybody gravitates down here who wants to pursue law, and most of them stay down here. They never, and you know, it's not a knock on them, but
right.
I would just imagine that if there was a law school in Shreveport, people would want to stay near their home.
Right. Well,
what are your thoughts about that?
Putting it like that, I think that would be a good idea. You know, but what I'll say is you have to look at again. You know, why do you stay? What is your reason? You know, because you're not staying because of the law school. You're not staying because of that. Because your ties to the law school are pretty much over, except for financial contributions, and you can do that in Australia if that's what you wanted to do. So, you know, I just look at, you know, why are people staying? And, you know, you have all of these law firms with their corporations here who make things attractive. Now, I don't know about Shreveport or Alexandria, what, aside from being a business-minded person, what they have there, what kind of law firms they have there. But a lot of them are here. A lot of people around the state and in other states that are doing business here in this part of Louisiana, New Orleans, and Baton Rouge. All of our large law firms are here.
Do you think that Louisiana is oversaturated with lawyers?
No, I don't think so. And the reason why I say that is because we're not oversaturated. We might be oversaturated with people who hold bar roll numbers, but we're not oversaturated with good attorneys.
Go back and elaborate on that. Bar roll numbers.
Right. That means that you passed the bar.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that you're a good attorney.
Okay.
And I tell people all the time, you know, you could be smart and be a good test taker, but and get a bar roll number. But here's the question: are you invested in your craft and continue wanting to learn your craft so that when a person comes to you, that you're able to help them? And I always say, from the time I started practicing with Ron, I never want to put a person in a worse position than what I found them. And so that's why I say we do have a lot of people with bar roll numbers, but we don't have a lot of great attorneys.
Qualifying is this
August
month.
8th.
August 8th. Okay, so that's
Tuesday. No, Wednesday.
Wednesday.
I said 888. August the 8th at 8 a.m. That's where I'll be.
And the election is in October.
October 14th. And
Look
we're
right
trying
at
to.
that camera
So,
and tell the public why they should vote for you.
hello, I am Lyn Legier. You should vote for me as your next district court judge to replace retired Trudy White, because I will be effective and I'm understanding. And I know what the bench needs to move forward and to help our community. I'm asking everyone to go out and vote on October 14th, but I'm also asking everyone to go out and vote early, because on October 14th, that's Southern's homecoming, and it's also a large game for LSU. Early voting is from September 30th to October 7th. And I need your vote, and I'm asking for your vote and your support.
Lyn Legier, thank you for taking the time to come and share with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for viewing. Thank you for listening. We'll be back again next time.